Bam! What is up, the squad? It's your favorite auntie with Uncle Tendencies in the building with my co-host. Never gonna hold her tongue. Always gonna tell y'all about the poly sports in the situation. Political Lil, what's good? Political Lil, what's good? What's good?
All right. Let's get to it.
So we started this conversation the other day. We started this conversation the other day, and we got well, we took a turn into another important conversation that we needed to have. But I wanted to get back to have this conversation because it's a conversation that we need to have, that we need to get on the record, right? Moore was good, John was good, Groovy was happening, Officer T Davis in the building was good. So let me tell y'all real quick. So we got Polysports T. We got a special Gamecocking episode coming up, and then we're gonna get to the Cess Talk Sports WNBA fantasy draft tonight before the CC show. So y'all might as well lock in, get your snacks. We're gonna have a couple 15-minute breaks in here and there, but we here for the night. So let's go. Coming in the door, y'all. Run them likes up. So Lil, let's get into it. So from the fields to the courts, we talking about racism's grip on black athleticism. Okay, so let's get it. We gonna have this interactive conversation, right? This conversation is when we started it the other day. I was saying, it's deeper than stats, it's deeper than the trophies, it's deeper than the headlines. We're talking about years and years and years of folks profiting off of our the product of our bodies, right? Mm-hmm. It ain't just a game. It's about the grip. It's about the systems, the trauma, the generational exploitation of black bodies that started back on the plantations. And it still echoes right now in stadiums, gyms, and endorsement deals today, especially for the black women. And I'm not going to get into the back and forth. We're not going to get into the back and forth about you don't have to be a part of it. Because y'all know I'm one of the ones that's like, hey, if you don't like how it's going, go make your own. I'm the first one to say that. But we're going to have a real conversation about how this thing, the framework, right, and the foundation that this system was built on, right? Because it just keeps getting updated in our face. So we're gonna have this conversation. We're talking about, and we're gonna talk about the stuff that doesn't get talked about a lot: the emotional weight, the psychological toll, that sports PTSD that nobody names, but every black athlete feels. So Dr. Joy was saying, what we fail to realize is that we are still living out unhealed wounds, unresolved trauma that manifests in our daily lives, our communities, and even in our success stories. Think about that. We got trauma manifesting itself even when we succeed. That's deep, right? And if we keep it a buck, and Political Lil turned me on to William Roden, he hit it straight on. He hit it straight on when he said the black athlete has always had value, but rarely has he or she had power. And I know y'all gonna get my comments about I don't want to hear about the racist stuff. I don't want to hear about black and white, all of that. But it's not about that. It's about being able to have the power and the control over your own value, right? It's being able to set the price on what your value is and being able to benefit from that. That's what it's about. And it's not just about money. It's about the control. It's about who's pulling the strings and what you got to sacrifice to even just to get in that room. Let's name the grip. Let's challenge the systems, and let's push the convo to what really looks like to reclaim that power on and off the court. So the first thing you got to be able to do is see black athleticism as political, right? Because it's always been about more than performance. It's about power, profit, and control. We are so quick to hype speed, strength, highlight reels, black excellence on full display. Man, we clapping, shouting, go, let's get it. We buying jerseys. You hear me? Right? But what gets lost in all of that celebration is the machine behind that moment. Black athleticism ain't never just about who got bounced or who's the fastest, right? It's been about who's cashing in, who's calling the shots, and who's telling the story. And that's the conversation people is so afraid to have. That's the conversation people are afraid to have. And if you keep it real, it's been like that from plantation to prime time. From plantation to Monday Night Football, it's been just like that. The black body has been commodified, not seen as human first, but as a product, as property, as profit. That ain't just history class talk. That's the blueprint still being followed right now. The system's been eating off black brilliance while controlling the spotlight and scripting the narrative for far too long, and we're gonna peel these layers back. So when we talking the game, we got to talk about talk about this grip, right? The grip that keeps the power out of reach while the world claps for the performance. That ain't just legacy; it's right now. Okay, we love to chant the name. Oh, go! Stewie. You know, we chanting the names and all that, right? We wearing jerseys, but we don't consider the toll of that excellence. The pressure to be twice as good, the demand to be perfect. And I said this the other day, but I want to revisit it, right? The scrutiny that our athletes face when they speak out or simply exist in their full humanity. You know how hard it is to be unapologetically you? That should be the easiest damn thing to do, to be unapologetic. They make it the hardest thing in the world to do. Do you hear me? Run them lights up coming in here, y'all. Let's go and have this conversation. Get in here, y'all. Talk back to us. Especially for black athletes, success, it comes at that personal price, right? Mental exhaustion, isolation, the burden of being seen as a symbol rather than people. Excellence for them, it's not just a performance, it's survival under this microscope. And every okay, they're gonna say, well, everybody's under the microscope. Yeah, but you can move the microscope up and down. You can change the magnification on the microscope. Yeah, see the microscope, the magnification on the black athlete, man, is 1,000 times is 1,000 times more magnified than it is on other athletes. If we're gonna have a real conversation about what's going on, and people will be like, "Oh, slavery ended a long time ago." No, it didn't. Fingerprints still all over modern sports right now. The systems of control, the auction-like drafts, the labor for profit structures, and the constant surveillance of black bodies. Those aren't coincidences. That's continuations. Today's multi-million-dollar arenas, they look different from cotton fields, for sure they do. But the dynamics, the extraction, the exploitation, the dehumanization still rings really familiar. And the echoes loud. And if we're listening, we can trace the line straight from shackles to sponsorships, right? Straight from shackles to sponsorships. Who want to have a conversation with me today? Lil, let's get into it. Why? Let's revisit this. You talked about it a little bit the other day before we got sidetracked. How come so many people are still unwilling to separate sports from politics, especially when it comes to the black athletes?
Well, first of all, it's not a real big interest in politics. A lot of people don't really know how it shapes their lives. So this country has successfully been able to have your gaze put in the direction they want you to. So, a lot of people don't pay it no attention, or they don't see that that's how everything is controlled. It's controlled through politics. Politics determine the resources, who gets what, how much media attention you get. This, that, and the other. It's a very controlled system, and so they try to keep sports. They think when you think of sports, you think of a level playing field, and the competitors, the combatants, get in there and duke it out for supremacy. But it's not at all that. That's all smoke and mirrors. And when it comes to it, sports can kind of expose how racism is woven into the society, because these institutions that govern sports, and it's just easier for people to just enjoy black talent than to confront the black truth. But when you see these young people having to suffer and go through pain, get dragged in the press and stuff like that, then you realize it's a little more than than what they should be bearing. If it was indeed a even playing field, and we just know that it's not. And we see it every day. Some people see it every day and look over it, and some people see it every day and become alarmed. You see arguments about it, on the social media platforms, but it's just a constant devaluing of anything we bring to the table. And at some point, it just got to stop.
So, Lil, I want to back up for 1 second, because I was looking at some of the comments that come up on some of our shows. Can we just back up? And can you define politics? Because I need for people to understand that politics ain't just about who the president.
Politics.
Can we put
Politics
it
is
seriously, so that everybody is on the same page about what politics is and how and where it fits? Let's put a definition on politics, please.
in the simplest form. It's just the mechanism that controls how resources are distributed in a society. And what I mean by, it governs how laws are written, how policy is woven, how public policy comes about. It distributes the resources. For example, our tax system through the IRS collects taxes, right?
Hmm.
through politics or policies that Congress put forth determines how those monies get distributed. For example, because the blue states have the most population, the
Hmm.
we take care of the red states, you know,
Okay.
and so that's determined by Congress. So Congress, they look at they look at, okay, we got so many billion of money, we're gonna put it in this program, we're gonna put it in that program. We're gonna have a program where, uh, like redlining, for instance, the FHA, we started a system to allow citizens to have home ownership,
Hmm.
but okay, we get the money from everybody, but we're gonna put this in the white community for them to build in the suburbs. And then we're gonna put a red line around the black community and tell the banks not to lend to anybody in the red line.
Right.
And these are
Exactly.
actual things that happen. So this is
Hmm.
what politics is. Like, if you're a person that has a driver's license, you have a driver's
Well.
license and you're required to have insurance. Those are political acts, and they come
Hmm.
about through policy, designed to protect the public or give one group disadvantage or that advantage. Well, in the case of driver's license, everybody have a license, everybody gotta have insurance, because
Hmm.
people gonna have accidents, and
Shoot.
things like that. And then you get into the justice system if you violate
Mhm.
these type of policies. That's kind of politics on a. It's just the
You
way the
you
power
being
system
nice.
is.
You being nice, because I done seen politics. If you go back in history, I done seen politics rip up entire black neighborhoods.
Oh
Come
yeah,
through with a bulldozer and rip up the entire neighborhood and say we finna build some affordable housing.
I
You know
mean
what came up?
they did it with the
They
highway
came
system.
the project came up. Next thing you know, people was living in projects. They were living in
Mm-hmm.
homes, nice homes. These was neighborhoods. They came through and tore up. But let's go. Politics is war over resources without bloodshed, while war is politics with bloodshed.
That's a good
Miles
definition.
says, "Tune." I hope I'm saying that right. Yeah, but y'all let me know too. What messages were you taught explicitly or implicitly about black athletes growing up? It's the way out. They run faster. They jump higher. Uh, what did they try to get us to believe? They're not intelligent. They're not as intelligent as quarterbacks. Y'all got me? Y'all got me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. I couldn't
You
even
can't
hear
hear
you.
me now? StreamYard is I'm sorry, y'all. StreamYard is all over the place for me right now. I couldn't see Leo for a minute, so I just kept talking. Um then it wasn't even showing me on mute. Y'all can hear me now? Okay, good. Now, let me get back to what I was saying. I want to know what messages were you taught explicitly or implicitly about black athletes growing up? And I was just talking about faster, stronger, not as intelligent, can't play quarterback. But also, do you believe society sees black athletic talent as a gift or a resource to exploit? Right? There's nothing but politics in sports. You can see the politics being played out in the ESPN power rankings of players, teams, coaches. The politics is visible on who's going as number one. Draft picks. Well, okay, so Chronicles, you say the politics is in your face. I think it's in your face too, but we have people who will tell you that there ain't no politics in sports. They say there's no politics in sports. But Let's get to the historical foundations. Yeah, politics is in everything. I think that's what Political Lil be saying. YouTube doesn't want us to get this good information. Something's going on, but I'm not going because I hit the thing. It told me I was off mute. The light went away and everything. Y'all said y'all still couldn't hear me. Then Political Lil went away. So I was like, well, I better keep talking because I don't know who they could see. That's all right. We gonna get through this conversation. So let's talk about the historical foundations from the actual cotton fields and stuff. And I think about Cat Williams. And Cat Williams is one of my favorite comedians. And early in one of his stand-ups, he talked about the creativity of black folks, even when we was in the cotton fields. And he do a segment, and it's a joke, but in all jokes aside, it was kind of serious. So like he's out there and he's like, they in the cotton fields and they trying to figure out how to pick the cotton faster, how to pick it quicker, right? And by the time he get finished, it almost looked like he dribbling the ball through his legs and crossing folks over. He was able to get this talent from right. So
Mm-hmm.
from the cotton fields, from the plantations to the stadiums, we've been having we've been laying this groundwork, right, for commodifying black bodies. So the exploitation of black athleticism, it didn't begin on the field, it began in the fields. And that's what we need to understand. Where enslaved people's physical labor was seen as profit. That same mindset still shapes how black bodies are valued today. How they look at us. How they the combine, what they do. They want to know how tall are you, how much you weigh, how high can you jump, how fast can you run, what is your wingspan. Then we want to talk to you, see where your head is at, right? It's just like going back to when they would bring what they would call them. They would bring the bucks out, big bucks out. They would walk them out in the circle for the when they would auction the slaves off, and they would say, "Well, look at him. He 6'1" and can do all that, right?" So early 20th century sports used black athletes for entertainment without giving them power. In the early 1900s, black athletes were allowed to perform, but rarely allowed to lead. Come on, y'all talk back to me. And you in draws while they measure you in the NFL come, ain't you? Yeah, you is. Showcase, but the power, money, and decision making stayed in white hands. Black athletes were often viewed as trophies, rewarded for their talent, but denied their humanity. And for black women, that erasure, it ran even deeper, right, Lil? Like they were either ignored or ridiculed, but never fully seen. So how does the idea of the plantation prize show up in today's high profile athlete culture?
The plantation prizes show up when these black athletes are rewarded with wealth and fame. But that's as long as they keep their mouth shut. And their value is tied to performance and profit, but not to autonomy and voice. And it's just a modern day version of how they control your success. Because visibility doesn't always equal freedom. You could be a high visible athlete and still, in a trap, so to speak, when you can't say nothing, or if you say something, like I give example of Angel Reese. All she said is that she's unapologetically herself.
Mm-hmm.
And she got pounced on just because she was proud to be who she was, because it's not like you can go change tomorrow. However you come here, that's how you come here. And she was happy to be who she was and thankful to God for the person that she was made, and for that she got crushed. And this is very psychologically damaging.
Okay, and what role do you think class and gender play in how black men and women athletes were treated historically, I should say?
Well, the thing about black women is they face both racial and gender exclusion. And in a lot of cases, they were denied visibility, resources, and legitimacy. Many came from, working class backgrounds. And so opportunities, to live the good life, I always call it the good life, were few and far in between. And then you had to, it's almost like you're right back on the plantation, because you're not in control of yourself. You have to do what they say or they kick you off the platform.
See,
out
is this type of stuff
off the game.
Is this type of stuff that got everything going crazy? Kennedy Carter assaulted Caitlin Clark? Not at all. There was no assault. Y'all push these narratives and put Was it a hip check? Yes. Was it a hard hip check? Yes. Was it something that happens in basketball all the time? Absolutely. Was it assault? Not at all. Not at all. Why do y'all push them type of narratives? That type of silliness. To deter black women and future athletes from competing, to control black women narratives, to keep white women on pedestals. Okay. I mean, yeah, and I'm here for the conversation. If you want, if y'all want to have a real conversation, I'm here for the conversation. But Kennedy Carter assaulted Caitlin Clark. Take the foolishness. We appreciate you engaging, but move around. If you want to have a real conversation, we can have a real conversation. Assaulted Caitlin Clark, not at all. So what's interesting now? What's interesting now? Let's see. Angel Reese is like the punching bag for racist women's basketball fans who don't want a black woman as the face of the league. Truly, black women built the league, but then racist white fans want to change history. It's not well here. If we don't have a real conversation, it's not just it's okay. Let me say a couple things. The racist the racist people that I see allow using the 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 fandom and the popularity around women's basketball to push political agendas and racist narratives, I don't believe are fans of basketball. I don't think that they're here for basketball at all. They're not here. They're here because it is supplying a vehicle for them to get their narratives and their agendas and their bullshit ideas out to as many people as they can because of the popularity around it. So Caitlin Clark has fans. Caitlin Clark has fans that are um Caitlin Clark has fans that are black. Caitlin Clark has fans that are white. Caitlin Clark. I don't think that people that are really fans of Caitlin Clark, the basketball player, are really racist. Now then, we have the Clarkies that are around it. They don't. They're not even the people that be talking on the internet and pushing a lot of the narratives. They don't even be watching the games. They don't even be watching the games at all. They watch a couple highlights. They look for something to be able to jump out and talk about. To be able to gaslight people and shit. Delusional. Magic Baby said delusional. What you just said made a whole lot of sense. They're not real basketball fans. Yep. Congratulations, Sanaya made the team. Y'all pull up on me for Gamecock, and we're gonna talk all Gamecock stuff on the Gamecock show and celebrate the Gamecocks making the WNBA. Uh, oh yeah, we talking about it today. We in it. We was gonna have this conversation the other day when we went left into another conversation we needed to have. But today we gonna finish this conversation. So let's talk about the youth to pro pipeline that is exploiting black talent through schools, the NCAA and NIL. From middle schools to the pros, there's a system that's grooming young black athletes for profit. Schools, college sports, and then this new NIL space, we're gonna see what that looks like, right? The money moves, but rarely into their hands. Black women athletes are often the backbone of the teams and the face of the culture, but when it comes to pay, promotion, recognition, they're still treated as invisible labor. Somebody tell me, I think the blue A1s dropped today. Did the blue A1s sell out today? Y'all, somebody let me know in the chat. The weight of being great under constant scrutiny takes a toll. Many black athletes experience deep mental and emotional fatigue. What we're calling sports PTSD. Long before they even go pro. What's the difference between development and exploitation when it comes to black youth in sports, Lil?
Well, when you talk about development, that centers around the whole person, providing them education, mentorship, and long-term opportunities beyond the game. But exploitation uses their talent for short-term gain, and it often, ignores the mental, emotional, and academic well-being of black youth. It's the difference between building futures and burning out bodies. And these people seem to be more interested in frying us and placing us to the side, because you get exploited, then you get discarded. And you look at the number of athletes, you had a whole documentary called Broke about the number of athletes that went broke after playing pro sports. So they'll keep you rich while you playing and while you making them money. But they just sending you through a conveyor
They're
system.
not gonna educate you to keep it. They're not gonna educate
No,
you to keep it. Rob the Man Media in the building. What's up, Mr. Shake My Hand? Y'all get
that,
Rob a follow.
that's something
We
they
we, we
just
talked
starting
about
to
that.
do.
But that's something that we were talking about too. Rob was talking about it. We were talking about it with the NIL. It does no good to bring the NIL piece if you don't bring the financial literacy piece, right? So I think Rob was talking about Dion does the financial literacy piece. I know Don does some financial literacy piece and tries to get them in spaces and places for them to partner and get education for people that pay that pour back into them in that way. There's always someone singled out as the enemy for insecure people. Oh yeah, South Carolina women's basketball development, LSU women's basketball exploitation. Wow, you think so, FM? Tell me about that one. Deion Sanders, Chad Ochocinco, Terrell Owens, etc. The blue ones are not sold out yet. Okay, good. Let's go. You just got yours. Okay, let me get out. When I get off here, I got to get mine. How are black women athletes navigating NIL differently from their male counterparts?
Well, black women are using NIL to tell their stories. You know, they building brands across multiple industries and create generational wealth. And that's
Mm-hmm.
often without the same institutional support of, visibility that these males have. So, you look at people like Angel Reese and Flaw J. Johnson, they're leveraging their creativity, community, and social media, to amplify their own voices, and not just the game.
Mm-hmm. So is visibility the same thing as power?
Actually, it's not. And one good example I could give
Well,
you
let's talk about it.
is the music industry. Look how
Mm-hmm.
many blacks have these major visibility. Then you find out, oh, that was just a prop. Oh, they borrowed the jury. They don't have any real power or even finances behind this image that they're portraying. They just in the moment. So they could spotlight your presence, but
Mm-hmm.
power is about control, influence, and decision making.
Right.
Power is about control, influence, and decision making. And black athletes may be seen everywhere, but they're not in the boardroom. They don't, the media, they're not making any policies. So their visibility is only performative. It's not, transformative. And I mean, you see that in every single sport that's making money. We're not in that GM seat, barely in the coaching seat, maybe in the assistant coaching seat.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely not in the front office. I can't think of one. I can't even think is there. I think it's only one basketball president of operations in the women game. I believe that's in Connecticut. But that's what the
Oh, wow.
problem is. We make up
Well,
the majority of the players, but we don't make any of the decisions that could help the majority of the players.
so do you believe NIL really empowers black athletes, or is it just repackaging the same old game? Because to me, it seemed like if you leverage it properly, it can empower you, right? Because you look at a Flau'jae Johnson, right? Flau'jae is getting ready to come in with brands that she's dealt with. She's coming in with already a set amount of money, more than they probably gonna be able to pay her in her first year. Um, when she sits at the table, you don't feel like they're gonna see her different. She's still gonna just look like a commodity. To me, you got to be able to partner with her at this point, and she needs to be her conversation needs to be one that is of partnering and not transactional type of relationship.
Yeah,
Like
that
I'm
may
bringing
be
something to
true.
the table, you bringing something to the table.
That's not going to pertain to the league now, as far as her people that she's getting sponsorships with and endorsements with and stuff like that. And the way she partnering, which is a little smart, for example, if she's with Rock Nation, and that's a
Mm-hmm.
partnership that still allows her to create her own music lane. But suppose she had to sign with one of the big labels like Sony or can't think of some of these other big labels. If she had to sign with any of the four big labels, they'd be controlling her image, telling her what to wear, what eyebrow to put on. A lot of these artists in the music industry wind up upset that they can't be authentically themselves. The music industry wants to create an image for you. It's the same thing with the WNBA. They don't want rebels with a cause. And if you notice, since you're talking about Flaw J is she's pivoting making sure that they understand that she is not an enemy of their girl. She gonna ride with her. She's not coming in to be no troublemaker. She's not trying to be an activist like Reese. And so she's you know using her music. Now she dropped Reese's name in a song. Now recently I understand she dropped Caitlyn's name in a song. These
Oh,
are
really?
things.
Okay.
Yes. So she's trying to insulate herself from any backlash. Not that I think she could ever mentally handle the backlash that Reese endured, but it's because she understands that she's navigating, getting ready to navigate a professional space where there's no arms of protection, and if she makes the wrong move, and become too black or a threat, you get squashed like a bug. So NIL is can be a benefit to building generational wealth, but you gotta be careful how you navigating it. And, we got a whole story on that looking like a Trojan horse, because Mr. Saban is up there trying to put a noose on it now. So that's how that goes.
What exactly? Can you give us a really quickly, like, what it is that Saban wants done? What it is that Saban is in? What changes he influencing?
Saban is working with our president to put a cap on what can be made in the NIL space. He wants, for example, he wants everybody to be able to make maybe $50,000. Like everybody could just get one scholarship, and
Mm-hmm.
limit what schools have to pay out for these athletes. Now he wasn't talking all that when he was getting all the talent, but now the NIL done came into the picture, and these coaches got to get out here and bargain with these young men, especially in the arena of football and basketball. Now you got the young man with a team behind him that his market value is this, and this, and that case with the Tennessee quarterback who was promised one thing, then he didn't get it, and you're able to jump in the portal when you can't get paid what you want. In other words, it's just another way of them attempting to get control of the NIL space. The NCAA evidently wasn't set up to control anything, and so the states jumped in, and everybody trying to keep their talent at their flagship school. Then these collectives came in, and they, some
Mm-hmm.
of them might have tons of money in Illinois, and they ain't got tons of money in Mississippi. Stuff like that. So he's trying to get a federal law to
The
everything.
collectives are going away. The collectives are going away. They got the revenue sharing coming in, so the schools are going to be paying. And Rob broke that down on the hot takes. Uh, the schools are going to be actually paying the money directly to and controlling the money now. So it won't be the collectives. Although, like anything else in college sports, there'll be loopholes. There's going to be some kind of loophole to still keep that shake my hand and the envelope flowing if it need to. But for the most part, it's supposed to be controlled now by the schools. So it's
Mm,
supposed to be away from the boosters. It's supposed to be away from the private collectives and all of that. It's supposed to be the money come into the school and the school cut the check. So we'll see how that goes. We'll see how that goes.
right. I mean, I don't. Like I said, they trying to get one federal law that supersede any state schools or any other kind of policies that they've set forth in order to control the number of black athletes creating generational wealth with NIL. In other words, I'm gonna make it a job, and you're gonna be back to the same system as you an employee, and you have an employer, so to speak. So I don't necessarily like it. I think you should be able to make as much money as your talent will allow. You know, but that's kind of where Nick Saban is at this time, because
Okay.
he just very much he really didn't like how NIL came about, with the court decision. But And that's what happens when the
Yeah,
Supreme Court
but
speaks. Only
go ahead.
Congress, when the Supreme Court speaks, only Congress can come back and supersede anything that the Supreme Court, by instituting a new law. And
Right.
you know, because when you look at the players, this money is still going into the hands of lawyers and
Mm-hmm.
agents and all other, types of actors.
It funnel through a lot of folks before before it hit the kid hand too.
Yeah.
It funnel through a lot of spots before it hit the kid hand for sure. But let's shift a little bit and talk about and talk a little bit more about the sports PTSD and that trauma from the constant racial scrutiny, the pressure, and the exploitation. Because sports PTSD is real. It's the trauma that builds up when black athletes face constant pressure, racial targeting, and the expectation to perform without the space to just be. Right? We've seen this play out in real time. Serena's public battles, Osaka's need to step back, Sha'Carri Richardson's punishment without compassion. Those aren't moments; those are symptoms, right? This pain doesn't exist in a vacuum. It connects to the deeper trauma outlined in post-traumatic slave syndrome, where survival meant silence and strength meant never showing pain. Think about that. Survival meant silence, and strength meant never showing pain in the system where you're constantly experiencing trauma. Why is it so hard for black athletes, especially women, to say, I'm not okay?
Because they're expected to be strong, grateful, and just unbreakable. I mean, black women athletes, they carry a lot of weight of racial and gender stereotyping and making, them vulnerable and feel like, vulnerability is just something they can't afford to do. They had all, it's this strong, black woman syndrome. And it's
Mm-hmm.
admitting struggle doesn't come without criticism. I remember when Angel Reese, was sad about the loss, her final game in college. And, she told of some things that had happened to her that was traumatizing her. And I mean, the darts came out, the swords, came out. They almost took her apart just for being vulnerable,
Right.
and saying that she was in a world of hurt. It's like a relentless, unforgiving. Even Simone Biles. You remember the time in the Olympics when she needed to take a mental health break, and they was calling her weak and pitiful, and a quitter. And I mean, she took all kind of backlash when she just needed to step back, from performing. So it's like it's just like you can't get off the cotton field. You got to pick the cotton. They don't care if you a baby coming out, you dying out there. You ain't got enough water. It's like it's
don't
very
matter.
brutal. It's brutal.
Super brutal. And so, what's the cost of silence when it comes to mental health in sports? And how do fans play a role in creating or easing the mental burdens?
It's a high cost, because you look at some of the athletes that experience burnout and depression, and now you even seeing athletes, with this portal situation. Some of them just quitting the game, altogether. You can't speak up, so you got to suffer in isolation, and they want you to be, the system wants you to be silent, but that's not protection. All they want you to do is focus on the performance, but you ignoring the human behind the jersey, and that could eventually drive a person insane. I can't imagine when I think about last WNBA season. Woo, you going in these stadiums and these people hurling all kind of insults at you. You getting assaulted online. I mean, it was just crazy. I don't know how many of them, they took it because you want to be in the league, but they just not safe spaces. You shouldn't be playing basketball and getting threatened with death. I mean, that just is ridiculous.
And now you see the WNBA stepping up, and they had this program where they are calling people out for being over negative. Is that how it's working
on social media
and attacking people?
Yeah, they have some kind of app app they developed to catch as many negative stuff and try to erase it from the athletes platform you, and stuff like that. But I mean, this is 2025. You would hardly think something like that was necessary. And but
So
fans,
necessary, so necessary, so
yeah,
necessary.
fans can they
Because
can
it's
uplift
brutal
or
out
they
there.
or they or they can harm you. These fans are my lord. I
As,
mean, some of them are
as fans,
relentless and
do
cruel.
we really offer the athlete space to be vulnerable, or are we like, man, tough it out? Because I'll be honest, I know sometimes I'm like, girl, you hurt or you injured, get up,
Mm-hmm.
because you hurt or you injured. As a fan, I can admit my challenges. Uh,
You want to see that performance, and you want to
yeah,
see
like, hey, you hurt
the
or you
best
injured, get
from
up.
the best people perform,
Uh,
but you know.
and in the moment of that, sometimes you don't remember. Sometimes you don't remember to think about, like, what else was it today? What else was it?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you look at a athlete's performance and you like, hey, that was that was trash. They didn't do good today, but
Mm-hmm.
it was the best that they had to give today. They still
Right.
gave you 100%. We don't even recognize that was still the 100% that they had to give. And in a situation where it's a team sport, somebody else is supposed to be able to step in and pick that up when they 100% don't look as impactful as it has in the past, right? So you want to be able to balance that out. But sometimes you just, hey, you get caught up in and I get that, you get caught up in the celebration of it. You get caught up in the competition of it. You get caught up in the back and forth banter of it, and you just want to win, 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 win. But you got to remember, like they say, that they are still just human, right? And so we do
Mm-hmm.
have to give space to be vulnerable. You have to give space and grace um, for people to grow and develop. But um, I think that the media coverage contributes a lot to the sports PTSD of Black women and the
Mm-hmm.
our I'm not gonna say unwillingness, but our forgetfulness sometimes to give that space and grace to allow them to just be vulnerable. But how do you think media coverage contributes to the sports PTSD for Black women?
The media has too many agendas. In a lot of cases, it's owned by these institutions. Um, Money is too big a factor. So a lot of times narratives are just manufactured, that really hurt the athlete, but at the same time exploits them. And that's we live in a system that does that. You know, we don't have an honest media. They're not accountable for lies. Nobody, they don't receive any punishment for lying on these athletes, and
Mm-hmm.
they could easily do things that ruin these athletes' lives, impact their happiness and their sense of just being well. So that the media is the ones that shape, how successful you gonna be, um, by putting you in whatever categories that they feel, is best for whatever agenda that they're being paid to do. Because you got to understand, media is a paid entity. They paid by those institutions, and then
What's
they're
the what's the saying? What's the saying? They'll cancel culture on you. Create
yeah.
narratives on athletes has become its own industry. There we go. That's an
Mm-hmm.
industry. Creating narratives, not just on athletes, creating narratives on on entertainers, um, on people that are well known. I mean, it's its
Politicians.
own industry. I mean,
Yeah.
they don't even care. They don't even care now. I mean, and the fact that now you don't even got to put your own face or voice on it. You can just the AI will just make somebody up to say it for you, and put it in
Mm.
some robot voice for it to come out for you. Um, it makes it's crazy. It's crazy the type of lies they spend. Exactly. And but let's talk about let's get into some of the positives of it, because we are seeing some actual reclaiming of power. We're seeing cultural
Mm.
resistance in action right now, because we're seeing Black women are flipping the script, building brands, forming leagues, owning identity. Black women athletes are no longer waiting for validation. They're creating their own lanes, building brands, launching leagues, and owning their full identities, both on and off the court. Asia Wilson, Angel Reese, Flau'jae Johnson, Nafisa Collier, Dawn Staley, they're leaders in this. I know y'all get tired of saying their names, but these are the faces of the people that are pushing, are at the forefront of pushing back on this narrative. From the pros to college, women like Asia, Angel, Flau'jae, Nafisa, Coach Big Drip, they're redefining what leadership looks like in real time, using their platform to shape culture, challenge norms, and demand equity. And the politics of being labeled angry, divisive, and unmarketable uh, are being pushed back against too, right? By them continuing to just show up unapologetically as themselves. Because when black women assert power, the backlash is it's quick, angry, too much, unmarketable, all to keep them in check and control how they're seen. But Asia, Big Drip, Flau'jae, Angel, the Nafisa, they keep showing up as their authentic selves and unapologetically themselves everywhere that they are. You don't like me, so I'm still here. And what you gonna do about it? Because I'm the face that they want to place anyway. I'm the face that they want to place anyway. So now I'm here. The ability to pick up your phone and see what fans and non-fans think of them on the day gets the players causing more stress to perform. Yeah, I mean, you see some of these players totally just turn off the comments on a post or disengage from social media totally. Um, but what are these women teaching the next generation? Not in sports, but in life.
They teach them that excellence is not just about talent. It's about having a voice, values, and a vision. And black women athletes are modeling confidence, ownership, and purpose. And they're showing the next generation how to lead with integrity, fight for equity, and define success on their own terms. So they're not playing victim. They playing the role of victor. They countering moves.
I didn't say big grip. I said big drip. So if you are part of Cess Talk Sports fam, y'all know who Big Drip is. Coach Dawn Staley. The old school mainstream media is there to condition, re-traumatize, shape, and mold the minds of the masses. It's a sign of the times. In this information age, the scales are being balanced. You think the scales are being balanced, Louis? I think that its stars don't and shouldn't care about validation. The accolades spoke for themselves. Um, the stars don't and shouldn't care about validation. I don't even know if they care about the validation part, but I mean, if somebody was just tearing you down every day, all day, every place you turn, it seemed like it would take a toll.
Well, we just coming into the sense of
I mean, think about it,
learning to
real money. You
validate
be here,
ourselves.
real money. You be in here talking all your stuff until people really start getting back on you, and then you disappear because it get tiresome, don't it? You be here with all your comments and stuff, and then people start adding you back and saying stuff that they don't agree with you, and you'll get real quiet. You'll disappear from the chat because it get tiresome. People adding you, tearing away at what you believe, talking about taking shots directly at you. Think about that. You'll get quiet. You'll leave the chat when it get too much for you. They can't. Everywhere they go, that's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Everywhere I go, that's what it is. You just left the chat the other day because you didn't like what I had to say. You was talking. I said something you didn't have to say. You were gone. You was able to go away from it. Everywhere they turn, that's how it is. But I digress. Who's a black woman athlete that inspires you because of how she stands in her power? Somebody different than somebody that we named already. Y'all put some names in the chat. And why do you think people are uncomfortable when black women demand ownership in sports, Political
Lil? Because the status quo doesn't want to change. It's just the power brokers' refusal to employ any type of equality or equity, due to the fact that they have, they come to the earth believing or being taught that we only exist as black people to be exploited and to provide the comfort for their lives. In other words, we here to feed their face, take care of their families. They don't want us to get in a position where we have any equality. So it's just
This
about.
this is how I know. This how I know you don't get it, real money. Because the point about Asia, Angel, and them, everywhere they go, somebody gonna have something to say. Ain't you put your
Mhm.
phone down? Ain't nobody really checking for you. I don't know what you look like. If you didn't pop in here, I wouldn't even. I wouldn't even know who you are. I just happen to mention it because I see all of the weird takes that you put in here, and then when the pushback comes, you disappear. But every place they go, whatever space they put their face in, somebody got something to say. That's how I know you
Mhm.
don't get what I'm talking about. Because you talking about just putting down your phone. I'm not just talking about my phone. I'm talking about when I go out to eat. They talking about when they go out to eat, when they go to get their groceries, when they go to get their hair done, when they go to get their teeth checked, when they go to the doctor, when they go to see their mama, when they go to worship God, when they go to get their money out the bank, when they go to put some gas in their car. No matter where they go, because of who they are, people always got something to say. People always got to take. And now people always got a camera in their face trying to
Mhm.
record them doing something that they can make some money off of going viral, trying to push them to do something that is not attached to their brand, to get them off their square, to make some money off of them, to exploit
Mhm.
them. That's what I'm talking
Exactly.
about.
Exactly.
That's the part that I'm talking about. So it's clear. It's clear that you don't get it. And this probably you probably came here for a different conversation, but I move on. Um, let's talk about solutions and next steps. Um, let's look at solutions and next steps, healing and equity. Did I think Jordan worried about the GOAT debate? No, he didn't worry about the GOAT debate. But Michael Jordan couldn't be Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan had to keep his friends with just a crew of people that he went to high school, that he went to college with, because he couldn't be out there. Because he couldn't party with regular people, because people would have cameras in their face. But I digress. But really, like I said, I see that you're not ready for the conversation, so I'm gonna keep moving with the people that's in the conversation. Uh, I love how Flaugier and Big Drip operate. Real money doesn't care. He or she is always trolling, thinking everything is a joke when it isn't. Oh, I know, but that's what I mean. But then they type stuff. They got a name like Real Money, and they type a whole lot of stuff like they saying something, not realizing that they're not saying anything. And people recognize that, and that's why people react and give the energy back to their engagement the way that they do, because it comes across as disingenuous. Period. It just comes across as disingenuous. We've been in here so many different times, and there's so many different topics, having serious conversations with getting unserious engagement from people like Real Money, that when they do try to engage or want you to think that it's not a joke, you like, yeah, but you've already set a precedence. Your reputation precedes you. So there's that. But let's get on to healing and equity, y'all, because I don't want to keep y'all here all day, and I want to be able to get to the Gamecock and show before the draft. So the vision of equity: mental health care, pay equity, black-led ownership. True equity in sports means more than headlines. It means prioritizing mental health, closing the pay gap, and building systems where black athletes, especially women, have real ownership and control. Um, change requires accountability. So right, like equity audits in media, in leagues, fans speaking up when they see injustice, communities building support systems from the ground up. Everyone watching or listening has a role, whether you're a fan, coach, parent, part of the media. Dismantling these harmful systems starts with how you show up, speak up, and support. What policies or practices could shift power back to black athletes, Political Lil?
Well, policies that ensure the athletes' representation on decision-making boards, enforce equitable endorsement practices, and having a system in place to protect the mental health and labor rights of these athletes would shift the power. Practices like revenue sharing, ownership opportunities, coaching opportunities. Athletic athletes, having media platforms where they can give other black athletes, advice and how what they call how image and produce
Oh
their
yeah,
own income. And Flaw J and Angel got these successful podcasts, and so they starting to do that. But I would like to see more athletes, especially interact with those athletes that are coming up. even down to the
Mhm.
grade school level, because we need to get way down there.
Now,
And,
Flau'jae does a good job of that. Flau'jae do a
mhm,
good job of that. And I like the fact that she spent a lot of time pouring back into the overtime select players. Like she had
mhm,
Gigi on there. I want to say I think she had Jersey on there. She had a few of the overtime select players on her podcast and was pouring back and asking them and she seems very willing to show her path, to share her path.
mhm,
Um, but Flau'jae is a little bit different because she's a two industry star, right? And
mhm,
she's been in the limelight and been building a brand long before it was fashionable to build a brand, right? She's been building the brand since she was a kid. She's been a
mhm.
brand,
Yeah.
right? So she walks it and talks it different than some of the athletes because she's been doing it since America's Got Talent. But
Mhm.
we got to start rewriting the game, right? We gotta acknowledge how black athletes strive despite these pressures. Even with all the barriers, with the disrespect that comes, with the weight of legacy, black athletes continue to rise. Brilliance, resilience, and resistance are not just inspiring, it's revolutionary. We gotta highlight that this new generation is not just playing, they're changing the game. This next wave of black athletes isn't they ain't here just to compete no more. And they ain't gotta wait. They're here to challenge the system. They're building something new. Look at Unrivaled and leave the game better than they found it. Right?
Exactly.
And what gives you hope for the future of black athletes, Political Lil?
Just that growing sense of ownership, the unity and the fearlessness. Black
Mm-hmm.
athletes today are, they really making some waves. That unrivaled thing that was always fascinated me. Um,
Mm-hmm.
they building these platforms and they starting to, if they can't get equity, then they'll create it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to honor them and their full humanity. And that, because it takes courage to pull off what they pulling off, and then that can be contagious. you know
Absolutely. And let's answer this question before we get out of here. Political Lil, can athletes oversaturate the podcast market? Courtney Williams, Cam Brink, Erica Wheeler, Lexi Brown all have started one.
Absolutely not. We need more voices. We don't have enough voices. And as many of them as because each one of them gonna have different audiences. And
Mm-hmm.
so as each one of them can reach a different audience, we need to pour in, just like, I've suggested we need more YouTube content creators, uh you know entering the space to promote these black female athletes. We don't have enough of them. That's why it's so easy to kind of get drowned out. So that's my hope, is that they can expand themselves. And this is it's fascinating. I like to see everybody have a podcast, just as part of the part of their career journey. I
Well, yeah,
think
because you
everybody
want to
has
be
a
able to
voice.
hear it from they. You want to hear it from their mouth. You think
From their
about
experience.
you think about Save the Last Dance during the pandemic. Save the Last Dance drop, right? Michael Jordan did a 10-part series.
Mm-hmm.
Now we got players in the NBA ain't even won a championship, with people with cameras following them around for they Save the Last Dance type documentary. What do you have that for? But it's important. They don't have it. They don't have it necessarily just to show the championships. They have it to be able to show their journey, to be able to share their voice. And so my thinking was like, man, you ain't even won nothing yet. What is all these cameras following you around? You may not even get to that part, right? But you want that footage. But I want that. I
Mm-hmm.
want to be able to hear from them. I don't necessarily want to have to just take athletes and sound bites that ESPN or Fox Sports One or whoever provides. I want to be able to take it in its entirety, the way that they wanted me to hear it. Right? You hear it
Mm-hmm.
too many times. Athletes say they sat down and they cut that part of the interview off, or I didn't get to say that part, or I was gonna say this part too. I didn't get to that part. So I'm excited. I'm excited for the podcast, and they won't be on every day, and they don't have to be 2 hour long podcasts. It can be in short bites, the way people are taking in content now. So yeah, Angel
Mm-hmm.
should do a masterclass on branding. I would love it. Oh yeah, they get into the bag. The fact that the youth see the images, the actions of an Angel Reese, etc., cannot be underrated. The image alone is so powerful. Yes, it is. So
Mm-hmm.
y'all, we got a big night ahead on Cess Talk Sports. A lot more stuff coming. We got a special Gamecocking show coming up. We're gonna celebrate. We're gonna come together and just celebrate the Gamecocks. that made the WNBA teams. So pull up with me in about 15 minutes. We're gonna do that, and then of course we got the Cess Talk Sports WNBA Fantasy League Draft coming up tonight. It's gonna be, I don't know, it's gonna be wild up there. I'm expecting trades. I'm expecting trash talk. Uh, it's a cash prize on the line. So y'all pull up and hang out with us. But this conversation tonight was heavy, but necessary, y'all. We've unpacked history, power, profit, pain, and the truth about racism, about how racism still grips black athleticism from the fields to the court. But this conversation, it don't stop here, y'all. It actually starts with you. If you felt something, if you learned something, do us this favor: like, subscribe, drop a comment below. Um, Invite 10 people you know to watch this show. Share it out. Pass it on to someone who needs to hear it. Someone raising a young athlete, somebody working in sports, or someone still believing sports are just game. Once again, I want to thank my co-host Political Lil for dropping the knowledge as always, and to our audience, thank y'all for showing up, listening with an open heart, and being part of this movement. And we're not done. In our next Poly Sports T episode, we'll ask the hard questions about NIL. Is it a pathway to power or just another trap dressed up as freedom? Tune in as we unpack profit and power, who really wins with NIL. You don't want to miss that. Sports, it's never just about the games we play, y'all. It's about the stories we tell. And as fans, it's not enough to just cheer the performance. We must also honor everything the athlete endures to bring us that performance. If you really love the game, to advocate for the people who play it. Political Lil, what you got before we get ready to get out of here?
Oh, just keep tuning in. We're gonna keep bringing the politics to you.
That's what I'm talking about. Y'all know what it is. Until next time, y'all stay tuned. Talk soon. That's Political Lil, and I'm Cess, your favorite auntie with Uncle Tendencies. We out.